Major Hollow Knight Oversights.
Did you ever return to the Hive bench after freeing it from its cocoon? Well, unless you missed the bench, have never been to the Hive, or somehow beat the Hive Knight on your first try, the answer is probably yes. But who cares? Nothing seems to be wrong with this room. Well, exit and re-enter just once and voila! You can now pogo on the air itself. Pure magic. Although the cocoon's hitbox is removed when you break it, once you leave the room and come back, the game doesn't properly check whether or not the cocoon has already been destroyed, and so you get this ghost hitbox which remains for the rest of your playthrough. Pretty weird. Here's an oversight that's so obvious once you see it, but basically invisible until you do. When Soulmaster hits the floor, particles go flying everywhere to indicate the power of the slam. Not that the particles really match the ground texture given that he's charging into pure glass, but whatever, that's not the oversight. When transitioning to phase 2, the particles suddenly disappear. Strange, because now the floor texture actually does mimic them pretty well. But hold on, what's that beneath the floor? My goodness, it's the particles! They're spawning below the ground and getting trapped inside its hitbox. I mean, look at that! Some of this footage is just an old clip of me fighting Soulmaster, and now looking back, it's so obvious that there's something wrong here. Personally, I just never noticed it. That's crazy. This next oversight is not just an oversight. It's probably my life's work. That sounds a bit weird, but I have to take you on a journey to show you this amazing glitch that you can do with the Vengefly King in Greenpath. Here's what we need to trigger it. 1. Dreamshield, and 2. Encountering Vengefly King with Dreamshield. Now that might sound pretty easy, but let me tell you, it is not. At least not if you want to do this legitimately, which kind of has to be possible for this to be considered an oversight. The problem is that we have to avoid the Vengefly King room entirely, because once we encounter the Vengefly King, we'll either have to fight him or leave and then come back, at which point he's likely gone. The easiest way to circumvent this would just be to find another way to Hornet that doesn't involve crossing this room. If we can do that, we defeat Hornet, get Dash, get Claw, then Dreamnail, and finally Dreamshield. But the problem is that the only 2 other ways into the Hornet area are one-way gates blocked from the wrong side. The game really wants us to encounter Sot before we get to Hornet. Ugh, what the heck do we do then? There's really only one alternative, but that's impossible. There's no way. Can we get Dreamshield without Dash? Yes we can. Let me show you. It's actually pretty damn easy, except for one tiny skip we have to perform. I did the skip myself a few times actually, definitely, but in the spirit of shouting out a smaller creator, here's a video of Unkind Pair performing the skip. Pretty simple really. That's right, it's Blue Lake skip without Dash or Claw. Alright, I've never done the skip myself, but all we need to know is that it is possible. From here, we cross the Blue Lake, and yes, this part I could do, and then we get to the area below the resting grounds. I spent an embarrassingly long time trying to reach the lever up there to the left. Getting onto the right platform can be done with a well-timed jump, but since we don't have Dash, the final leap is just a little too tight, at least for me. I did a bit of cheating to give myself the Howling Wraiths, which I used to make the jump, but since I don't believe we can get Wraiths at this point, in practice this wasn't very useful. I then spent way too long trying to do the same float tech with the Vengeful Spirit, which we do have access to, but to laughable effect. That is until one of my few remaining brain cells randomly fired and I had an epiphany. I thought, isn't this room longer? And true enough, the room was indeed longer, and at the other end awaited a flying enemy to help me pogo to the goal. Genius, Holland. Absolutely genius. Alright, hold on a minute. Before you start bullying me, I have an excuse. I've been uploading scripted Hollow Knight content for the last 4 days straight, and I'm only about halfway. That stuff's pretty damn exhausting, so if you feel just a slight bit of pity for my excessive stupidity, please consider subscribing. Yes, I just played the pity card. That's how low I've sunk. Anyway, tomorrow's video is a very passionate one, so stay tuned. Now back to finding Dreamshield. I'm now finally at the resting grounds, still no dash required. Rushing through the dream sequence, I acquire the dream nail, and then it's just a straight shot to the charm pickup, then to the stag station, returning to Dirtmouth before finally arriving at Greenpath. And now we have it, Dreamshield plus Vengefly King. So what happens? Well, we have to defeat the king without hitting him with our nail. Then Sot just kind of disappears and we re-enter the room. And voila, the Vengefly King has respawned, ready to be harvested for Geo once again. What an amazingly efficient way to grind Geo. And what an incredible Hollow Knight oversight. Okay, I don't know about you, but after such a comprehensive oversight, I need a few short ones to refuel my dopamine reserves. So here's a quick one you probably already know about. Using Crystal Dash on an elevator that's in motion doesn't properly transport the crystals with you as the elevator moves. Swick. Then we have this Lance Sentry who is clearly cheating. Come on man, play fairly like the rest of us. You can't just float in the air like that. That's against the rules of gravity. This next one really boggles the mind. Notice anything weird as I go through this room? Probably not because it's so obscure, but this platform, why is it breakable? How could it ever be broken? Besides the Hive Knight, there are no enemies in this area. Did there used to be a Hive Guardian in this room and Team Cherry forgot to remove the breakable platform? Or did they just kind of think it looked cool? You know, like putting a cracked stone bricks in your Minecraft build? This one you've probably seen before because, well, everyone has. It's the False Knight / Fail Champion falling on top of the wall. That's about it really. I don't have anything interesting to say about it. So, moving on. Okay, this one is pretty strange. If you go to this room in the Fungal Wastes, then climb up into the secret area just above the entrance, then look down at the wall, you can clearly see a missing texture. Well, it's not that clear, which is probably why Team Cherry missed it, but the background asset here, they just do not make any sense. Weird. Quirky. Let's move on. This next oversight I've just labeled Elevators Are Weird, man. Man, that's because they absolutely are. So weird, in fact, that when I went to investigate them, I found 3 different oddities. First, when coming out of an elevator ride, you might recall that you move more slowly for a second or two. Well, that's not entirely true. It's more that time itself moves slowly after using an elevator. Because if you jump during this time, your descent will be slowed, which is kind of trippy and nonsensical. Second, you can jump through one of the elevator hatches. Kind of. You don't actually go anywhere, but it looks like you're just jumping through the ceiling, which is probably an oversight. And actually, I'll save that for the very last oversight because it's so cool. Now you have to finish watching the video or you'll miss it. I'm a genius. Don't worry though, we're almost there. For the final oversight, which conveniently is number 10, I didn't even plan that, I want to show you a compilation of how weird Hollow Knight's environmental hitboxes can be. This first one doesn't seem to be correctly lined up with the visual you're seeing on screen. Most of the hitboxes in the game don't have this problem, so I'm wondering whether Team Cherry might have done a few last-minute visual tweaks and forgot to update the hitboxes accordingly. This one is just an example of how inconsistent the Soul Sanctum pillar hitboxes are. Sometimes you're allowed behind the pillars, sometimes they're completely off limits. Then you have this hitbox, which, to be fair, watching back the footage is really uninteresting. Wow. I do generally stretch the definition of what a major oversight is, but damn, this is next level. This one I found in the Hive today. And yeah, I don't really care. Sure, it's a bit silly and quirky that you can charge up a crystal dash behind the wall, but that's about it. And finally, for those of you who miraculously made it this far, the coolest hitbox interaction I have ever seen in this entire game. The elevator rooftop hitbox Shenanigans. You might look at the elevator and think, I probably can't stand on that. Then you jump on it and find out that actually you can. And well, it slopes pretty nicely when you walk up and down the dome. But wait, hold on. Slopes nicely? Hollow Knight doesn't have any slopes. It's all horizontal and vertical planes. Well, yes, that's pretty accurate. So what's going on here? Let's enable hitboxes and find out. When you cross the x-axis, the hitboxes of the dome move up and down to match the visuals of the roof. They're basically creating an artificial slope. That's amazing. So the hitbox of the roof isn't actually sloped, it's just clever behind the scenes trickery. Now here's a fun, albeit subtle relic of how this was implemented. I doubt anyone has actually noticed this without using cheats, but it technically impacts the base game. Because the movement of these slope squares isn't tied to actually touching them, just to moving left and right, you can do this. Equip Weaver Song and jump on top of an elevator. Then go to the left of the slope and watch the Weaverlings clip into the roof texture. Or go to the right and watch them run off the edge on a heightened elevation. I really just wanted to show you this because I found it so cool. It's not actually an oversight. Although the visual inconsistency when using Weaver Song, that's technically an oversight. Gosh darn it, fix your game, Team Cherry. Thanks for watching, and thank you to anyone who left comments on the last Oversights video sharing some of these cool examples. You know who you are. If you got this far into the video, you must have enjoyed it at least a little bit, so why not consider subscribing? Perhaps even liking the video? It helps out a ton. In any case, I hope you have a wonderful day.
Bye!